In 2015, if you wanted to see the future of artificial intelligence, you had to look at Google. The search giant had quietly bought up research labs and captured roughly 3/4 of the world's top AI talent. But when confronted with the idea that superintelligent machines might pose a genuine threat to humanity, Google CEO Larry Page dismissed it. He felt the concerns over an AI apocalypse were entirely overblown paranoia. Elon Musk looked at that exact same landscape and was terrified. He saw Google's monopoly on talent and computing power and realized a single closed-off corporation was on track to build what he called a profit-maximizing demon. The path forward seemed set. The most powerful technology ever conceived was moving toward a reality where its development, and potentially the fate of humanity, would be controlled entirely by one unchecked corporate board. To counter this, Musk partnered with a highly connected startup accelerator president named Sam Altman. Along with top researchers, they pooled together $1 billion in pledged funding and formed a rival lab. They called it OpenAI, a deliberate shot at Google. Operating strictly as a nonprofit, sharing research openly for the benefit of humanity. Inside, employees talked about building artificial general intelligence as if they were building a god. Yet the daily reality was a handful of people sitting on couches in a San Francisco apartment, throwing code at video game bots just to see what happened, without any real strategy. It was a bizarre contradiction. They were attempting to invent a machine capable of solving all human disease and poverty, and they were trying to do it using a chaotic, nonprofit startup model. At the time, the entire field of AI was stuck in a decades-long slump. The main bottleneck was training data. If you wanted a machine to recognize a hot dog, you had to manually feed it thousands of images perfectly labeled as a hot dog. The process was agonizingly slow. Then, in 2017, a small team of engineers at Google published a research paper titled "Attention is All You Need." Ironically, they had just handed their tiny nonprofit rival the technical blueprint for scaling intelligence. This diagram illustrates how a transformer bypasses manual labeling. Instead of being spoon-fed, it ingests massive amounts of raw, unlabeled internet text, finding patterns on its own. It's no longer confined to single tasks. It can suddenly answer questions, translate, and write code. By teaching itself to navigate human language across millions of books and articles, the transformer allowed AI to move past simple pattern matching. It suggested that with enough computing power, building a general intelligence, one capable of mastering almost any human skill, was no longer just a theory. Scraping and processing the digitized internet is relentlessly expensive. Training these new models required massive server farms and millions of dollars in raw computing resources. Seeing the financial wall approaching, Elon Musk proposed taking over the company entirely to integrate it with Tesla. When the board refused, he walked away, taking the vast majority of his billion-dollar pledge with him. Starved for cash, Sam Altman engineered a massive structural pivot. To attract venture capital, OpenAI transitioned from a pure nonprofit into a capped for-profit hybrid. That pivot allowed them to secure the servers they desperately needed by partnering with big tech. Microsoft agreed to invest $1 billion, tying the once independent lab to one of the most powerful corporations on Earth. With real money now on the line, the commitment to open-source research vanished. When OpenAI developed their next major language model, they refused to release the underlying code, citing concerns that the technology was simply too dangerous for the public. By keeping their proprietary models locked down, they maintained a massive competitive advantage. To build the machine they envisioned, OpenAI had to systematically betray every moral principle it was founded upon. In late 2022, OpenAI released a research preview of their chat interface, expecting maybe 100,000 users. Instead, ChatGPT went wildly viral, hitting 100 million users in 2 months and capturing global attention. That explosive growth fractured the company from the inside. A deep divide opened up between the developers who wanted to capitalize on this momentum with rapid product releases and the researchers who were terrified of what they had just unleashed. Members of the safety team hadn't even been warned about the launch. They knew the model was prone to widespread factual errors and hallucinations, and they worried hackers could easily use the public interface to generate malicious code on a massive scale. The pressure of managing a culturally dominant product while trying to build safe, godlike intelligence pushed the two factions to a breaking point. The internal contradictions could no longer hold. On a Friday in November 2023, the idealistic nonprofit board made a desperate move to regain control. They ambushed Sam Altman on a video call and abruptly fired him. They claimed he was consistently dishonest with them, citing a lack of candor regarding internal safety approvals and a habit of quietly spinning up outside projects, like a global crypto network. But they miscalculated the culture they were trying to rein in. Within hours, nearly all 800 employees threatened to quit. It was a mass mutiny, driven partly by loyalty to Altman and partly because a pending share sale that would make many of them wealthy was suddenly at risk. Microsoft then stepped in, offering to hire Altman and any defecting staff immediately. Stripped of their leverage and facing an empty company, the safety board surrendered. The board had tried to act like the ethical governors of a research lab, only to realize too late that they were sitting on top of a multi-billion-dollar corporate entity that wouldn't tolerate being slowed down. 5 days after being ousted, Sam Altman walked back into the office. His critics on the board were purged, and he secured a position of absolute, unchecked control over the company's direction. Today, OpenAI sits at the center of a blistering geopolitical arms race. Valued at over $300 billion, they are sprinting head-to-head against massive foreign competitors like China's DeepSeek. They began in a tiny apartment with a promise to protect the public from a closed, profit-driven tech monopoly. To survive, they became exactly the kind of company they warned us about.